and welcome to How to Submit Your Talk to Meeting C++. 2 weeks ago, we had an event about speaking for C++ at events where 9 great speakers shared their insights about how to prepare and give talks. And the motivation behind organizing this is basically that I want to level the playing field, but also give this all those informations which were shared there to the community to motivate folks to give talks and to start talking, or to start either to start talking or to give talks again. And these were the 9 talks which were given. They're all on YouTube. They're great talks to see if you have plans to give a talk. They can help you in planning and in giving your talks. But I realized that the one thing we kind of not talked about is how do you actually submit your talk? And thought this is maybe something which I want to cover a bit in depth to get people to know this. So of course, who should submit a talk? And if you want to give a talk, submit a talk. Generally, a talk submission is the idea, and if the community likes it, this idea is then being presented at the conference. So you do not have to have a finished talk to submit to the conference. Most of the talks which are submitted are ideas, and then folks start working on it in August, September, October to have their talks ready in November, okay? So if you want to give a talk, then please think about submitting to Meeting C++. And that's what we're going to talk about now, the process of the submission for my conference. I want to point out that it's very similar to other conferences. So they also ask you for a talk title and a talk submission. Process is similar. There's some little differences, but this is now covering the process for this year and for Meeting C++. And because of that, just take some of the things I say with a bit of a grain of salt. This will be a bit opinionized, okay? So let's go. So step 1 is just you need to create an account. This is a basic requirement for basically interacting with my website. I want to point out, if you're interested in what Meeting C++ does, want to have news about the upcoming conferences, subscribe to the Meeting C++ newsletter. And if you'd like to get an overview on the latest blog posts every week per email, you can do that with subscribing to the weekly blog roll also. The next step then would be to go to the conference page and then go to the submission page, and then the first thing you will see is the speaker bio form, which also is later, when you fill this out, linked to it, available to edit it. And there you basically short description of yourself. The picture is optional, but if your talk is accepted, you should see that you get one, or that you have one ready to update your speaker bio with it. I do quickly want to point out that we now have a review feature, and if you want to join the group, which gives folks the basic feedback on their submissions, you're welcome to do so. The feedback there is more like on the forum, if there's any errors in it, etc. I'm going to talk about that a bit later too. And then I want to point out, this is a basic text editor kind of thing which I use for my website. It's TinyMCE, and basically that's what lets you enter all the longer texts. I want to point out that this chain symbol is where you enter links, and you're welcome to link to your page, to other things in your bio, and your talk description would makes sense. And also the pointy brackets are where you can kind of see the HTML, and that can be helpful if you copy paste things from other websites or from Word. Then maybe this also copies the style, and you might want to remove that. And And now you are ready to submit your talk. Okay. So this is the basic submission form. And let's break this down into its components. These are the two most important public fields, your talk title and the talk description. And I'd just like to go into these now. For the talk title, please keep it short. Be precise, be concise. I see a ton of people trying to include like subtitles and trying to cover everything about their talk in their talk title. I would ask you to step away from doing so, to be careful not to, like, if I see people adding things to their titles in brackets to explain things. And that's like, your talk title can stand on its own, and it should stand on its own. It doesn't need to have like a comma and a subtitle explaining the first part of your title. You should be careful with, like, just make sure your titles are good titles. That's something to think about, and that's why I have the edit function that you can later, if you have we usually don't have like the best idea for a talk title at the start. So if you have a better title that comes to your mind, change it. That's really good to do. And be aware, like, so for certain characters, they can be hints, like you have this typical talk title and then subtitle category, and if that gets too long, it's bad. And also, I'm going to take the liberty to maybe shorten your talk title if I think it's too long for the conference, because I have to see how it displays in the schedule, etc. And another problem I have is HTML entity conversion, because yes, that contains then a semicolon, and that makes a bit of a problem with notifications, because there I use CSV files. And of course, there are exceptions, like C++, all the things which C++ encumbers sums, etc., and other things. This is like really just a hint from me to think about your talk title. And when we are talking about this, good titles are engaging. How we did or using C++ for, using C++24 databases, using C++24 writing tests. These are good titles. Think about that. These are engaging titles. People directly know what you're talking about. Memes can be good, like constant expression, all those things. Was a great talk. But I want to point out that not all and everyone is like familiar with all the memes, and so what you might have in mind is maybe not the best idea. Also, recently, some people seem to pick up to use well-known phrases or quotations from other people to name their talks. That can be getting difficult for folks to map your talk title to what your talk is about. And for beginners, that's if you start giving talks, that's not the best idea. Very low-hanging fruit for giving talks is always to give an introduction or overviews on libraries, on various other things. Just be aware, like the very popular thing in introductions and overviews is C++ standards. So if you want to give an overview on C++23, that's a nice idea, but you will have a lot of competition. If you want to give an overview on a library you use or you have written, that will be a talk which is in that content area probably for itself or has very little competition. So might get, because of that, accepted, and the other talk, which is has a lot of competition, might, because of that, not get accepted. Okay. And let me point out that, of course, all those rules are broken by well-known speakers. And because, if you know the rules, you can break them like an artist, and well-known speakers often get away with more things in that regard, because people are coming to their talks because they have a proven track record of giving good talks. And then people are like, well, where should I go? Oh, I know that speaker. I trust that speaker, and even if the title is weird, I read the talk description, and like this kind of, or makes me interested to see what they say. And also they get away with that during the review often. Okay, I've seen that on not on Meeting C++ so far, but on other platforms that talks are not anonymously reviewed, and then it's a big influence on like, oh, that's because they give great talks. We should have them at the conference. So the title can be engaging. It doesn't have to be, but I think for new speakers, it's an important thing to think about, that people should know what your talk is about from the title, that they can kind of infer things from it. Okay. Which brings me to the talk description. It's basically what your talk is about. That's not a big surprise, right? So should be more than a paragraph. It can include code snippets. In that case, I would prefer you to use the pre-tag, which you can do with the pointed brackets. Very easy. It's not a blog post, so don't really write too much. I mean, you can do that. I'm happy to have that, but it's probably not going to get so much attention by the audience. Just saying that. You can and should link to important things like the library you're documenting, CPB reference, good bold, etc. List. Be aware if you copy and paste from other platforms or other conferences that there might be copy and paste artifacts in your thing what you just pasted. So again, you might want to check the HTML for style things which have been inserted by the copy paste artifact into your and that might influence how your talk then looks in the voting system, etc. I usually try to catch that. I'm not always catching it, but that way you see if that is like a problem or not. Brings me to the outline. How do you envision your talk? It's very popular to have your talk chapters or slide titles, to use a numbered list or a list with dots, to also basically just have folks, what they should know about the talk, or what you know about your talk and what you plan. It's a free text. You can do what you want in this basically, but it's only visible to reviewers and voters. It's not visible to the audience, and it's not public during the event. If you wrote your talk description and then write your outline, after that, read your talk description again and see if there are things in the outline which you didn't mention. It's like the typical one paragraph talk description and then writing the outline, and then you probably could add a second paragraph about what you came up with that. And that's often a very good idea. I've seen that happen now multiple times. Then there's this audience thingy, which lets you select for who your audience, or which audience you target. It's kind of important and also kind of ignored by folks. So yes, it gives an orientation, but it gives kind of your audience an expectation on the level of coverage and content they will see. And basically, it's like who should come to your talk, or like who do you want, or what do you offer in the content in your talk? Okay, if you give a beginner talk on lambdas, there probably still is going to become some advanced folks into your talk because they just are interested in seeing that talk, and maybe they learn something, right? After all, this is still C++, and you never stop learning. If you give the similar talk about lambdas, but for advanced folks, still beginners are probably going to be in your talk because they are interested in lambdas, and no other talk in parallel is interesting enough, and so they sit in your talk and learn something about it. This is the way kind of to give folks an expectation on what level of content you will present. And also most combinations of those three work. In theory, you can choose them all, but yeah. So let me quickly also talk about the other options you have to, you can select, you don't have to, you just can leave that like it is, that's fine. the first of them, and they're not connected. They don't have anything together, right? So the first is that your talk premieres at the conference, which means that it's not being presented at other conferences in front of, not after the conference, but like, this basically lets me know that this talk is premiering at me in C++. You can give it at a user group in front of that to practice your talk. That's fine. A lot of people do that. But it kind of is a signal to me, because I, as a conference organizer, need to know, like, where have talks been before they come to the conference. There is a lot of speakers which submit their talks to CPPCon and hence have given their talk at CPPCon and then give it at Meeting C++. That's also good. That way they have practiced their talks, and they will get feedback and will see things which they want to do differently. And usually then when they come to Meeting C++, they will have improved their talks, which is a benefit to the community. But not everyone can speak at CPPCon, and some people don't want to speak there, or however you are able to present there or at Meeting C++. So this is basically a way to let me know that this talk will be first presented at Meeting C++, and then maybe go to other conferences, to ACCU, C++ Now, CPP on C, CPPCon in the next year. That's all then fine. But that way I can kind of have a selection criteria to have some talks which are totally new to the audience, and have some talks which already have been given, etc., so that we have a good mix of talks. It's not a very important criteria, but I wanted to give people an option to say that they specifically prepare this talk for the conference. Which brings me to the submission review. Just if you want to have feedback on your submission, please choose that, and I will try to give you feedback on the submission. If you don't get feedback, that might mean that you already have done everything, and I might not bother you with telling you that everything is okay. And this feedback system makes you visible to other speakers which have chosen to be in the group for reviewers. Right now, it's only Meeting C++, so myself. And you can expect to hear about mistakes I have seen in your talk description or title, typos, etc. Things I think you should improve. The classic thing that you have hidden stuff in the outline, which is fine. A lot of people do that. But then, just giving a little hint, hey, your talk description would be a lot better when you add the second paragraph about the second part of your talk, which you might not have thought about when you wrote the talk description, then you wrote the outline. Again, as I said, when you write the outline, visit your talk description again and see that there maybe is a second paragraph to write. If you have a second speaker, some people do, then check this box, and this will trigger a form in the next step to add the data for the second speaker, and that's basically it. Which brings me to the last, and for this year, very important option to signal to the conference that your talk is online only. Meeting C++ is looking for folks to be part of the online conference and to speak there online. It's a huge chance for new speakers, because there's already a lot of folks which want to present in Berlin, and we're limited in space this year. And so if you, for various reasons, cannot be at the conference, or don't want to be maybe at the conference, pandemic or travel restrictions, we all have played that through the last 2 years. That's your option to let me know that you are set for being online, and that will give your talk an edge to the talks which are basically in competition for both, right? So I will, of course, when I select the talks for the online track, look who wants to speak online, who is already ready, and who's in that. And then I will select them first, and the others then will have to compete for what is there. Another track to think about is the pre-recorded track. I plan to have a track where people have their talks pre-recorded either on themselves or with myself, so that we have one track which we do not have to care for having staff in a studio which presses go live and have the speaker give their talk live. That eases a lot of stress on the conference and is something which we plan to have this year. Also quickly want to tell you that there is no on-site only if you are a speaker and submitting to this conference. I do expect you to be ready to speak online. Also, when you are submitting or when you're like chosen to be, like your talk makes it to on-site, still we are in the pandemic, and for whatever reason, maybe you're not able to make it to the conference, then your talk will be online. And we as a conference will be ready to stream your talk into the audience in Berlin from online. And you should be ready too for this case, even if it's unlikely, but that's how this year is and how the future is. Online is the new default. And then the last thing you have to do in this form is, of course, to send it and to submit your talk. You will be able to edit it. You will receive an email with an edit link, which, if you click it, will simply load the same form you just saw, to edit your talk. Also, on the talk submission form, there are then suddenly links which go to the edit form for the speaker bio and also to a listing of your submitted talks, which includes like a state and also includes the edit link if you want to edit your talk again. Okay. So the next steps then are that once the call for talks has ended, there will be a kind of a 1 week period where you can edit your submission, because some people have second thoughts and want just to enable folks to have the chance to finalize their submissions, and then the voting will start. In the voting, the talk info is visible and the speaker info isn't. So it's kind of anonymously, and how anonymous you want to have your review is kind of up to you. There's just some people where they want to give a talk about their library, everyone knows who they are, and it would be pointless to anonymously try to have people talk about this. So we're a small community. Everyone would think that this is that speaker. But we already had also people submit talks, and then people were like, oh, this community member must have submitted a lot of talks because there's a lot of talks on that topic and they're well known for it. And in reality, they didn't have submitted a talk on that topic at all. So take that with a grain of salt. As a countermeasure, I do have, I think former speakers and my staff can see the speaker info. And that is simply for making provisions to, have some people judge a talk on who the speaker is. Additionally to the talk info, of course. And the selection for the tracks is guided by voting results, but 2022 is again special. We have the 10-year conference. We are very limited in space due to the pandemic in Berlin. And we are hybrid, and so I will have to see, who comes in the selection to speak in Berlin, who will have to speak online, and then who will volunteer for the pre-recorded track. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, engagement, I really want to motivate you to start speaking or to submit your talk to this year's conference. This is the conference website again. You can reach out to me on Twitter or via email if you have any questions. And with that, thank you.